All right. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the HHC podcast. I am your host, Jacob Moreno, and I'm here with my brothers Juan and Chris. How y'all doing this week? Chris, how about you?
Morning.
Morning, indeed.
No,
Juan,
no,
how you been?
I'm doing good though. I'm doing good.
Okay, that's good. Juan, how have you been? You haven't been on in the last couple weeks, man. We've been missing you.
Think you're muting one.
Oh,
There you go.
I've been
We're
fine.
good.
Going through life, but the Spurs don't make it any easier.
Yeah, Spurs don't make it easier. The Cowboys always giving me anxiety. It's definitely a roller coaster of emotions when it comes to the sports. But as this new year's been going on, these things have been school year's been going through, been getting a lot of fun things here and there, and finally, with Juan being back on, which it means that can bring back the trivia. Before we do get into the trivia, make sure that you guys do follow us on all three platforms. Make sure that you're watching on all three platforms of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We go live at the 10 a.m.s every Sunday. I know we're a little late this time around, but it's because we're trying to make sure that we're extra.
That's why it's 10
prepared for today's
a.m.s
episode.
because there's many options. There's 10 a.m.s,
Exactly.
there's 10:01, 10:02.
Exactly. So make sure that you do catch us when we do go live. If you can't catch us when we are live on those three, then the VODs will be on those shortly thereafter. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs on the near daily. Anytime that there is any engagement about San Antonio, we try to talk about it, and so we love having that engagement with the Spurs community. But yeah, we do got quite a good bit to talk about this week. Even though the Spurs aren't necessarily on a winning streak, there's always something to bring up. Whether it's Keldon, Kawhi came back to San Antonio this week. We had the DJ news pop up, and even some videos that the Spurs team's been putting out over our young guys, and even throwing it back all the way to 2003. So plenty of stuff that we get to talk about today. But before we do get into all of that, we already know we got Jake's weekly trivia challenge. So anytime that we do have anytime that I do have the chance, we'll try to have these trivia challenges where I will come up with some Spurs trivia, Spurs stats, anything that can be not super known throughout not just the NBA world, but throughout Spurs. So this week I do have some pretty good things. We're gonna throw it back with this first question, because again, we will be talking about the 2003 run a little bit later on, but for the all-time Spurs, who leads the Spurs in 3-point field goals made? Now, San Antonio's always has some hot shooters, but I think it's one thing to note that we haven't really had somebody like really stay for a whole career and like just be a 3-point deadeye for us. We haven't really had any Kyle Korvers or anybody like that that's really been here from day one and has gotten stayed throughout their entire career shooting the three ball that a lot. And then you got to add in the fact that when we were competing, it wasn't a lot of 3-point shots being had at the time. A lot of it was playing in the post and giving it to Tim Duncan and stuff like that, to where you didn't really have a lot of 3-point opportunities because we were always looking inside. So Chris, do you have your answer? Do you have a guess or anything? Your mic's muted.
Yeah, I do have a guess. Not very confident in it. Well, I have reasonings for it, but I just, it's a guess.
All right, cool. So, Chris, Juan, if both of y'all could show your answers. All right. What do y'all got going?
I said DG.
Danny Green. And Juan goes with Manu. So, the person that does have the most 3-point field goals is indeed Manu Ginobili. Now, Juan, was that an educated guess, or did you
Yeah.
have like a good idea of it?
Well, yeah, both. Kind of like what you said. I wanted to say Danny myself, but you said the thing like nobody's been here like their whole career. All our shooters. I was thinking like Sean Elliott, Danny, Patty. I don't know how long Chuck played for the Spurs. I literally was just trying to think of all the shooters that I know of like the modern era, and I just settled with Manu because he was the one who played here the longest.
Yeah, right. Mine was more of like, okay, Danny was with us, like you said, when we were competing, but it was also like, okay, now we are getting to the era where 3-pointers are becoming more, we have more volume. So it's like Danny would have a shot. Danny would have a shot because he was with us for like a good amount of contending years and had the green light most of that time. You know what I mean? When we were really starting to let the ball move around. So I figured maybe if anybody could catch it just on pure volume would be a guy like him, but no, Manu probably had the tenure.
No, I think y'all both had a good choice. Danny is top 3 in field goals made. 3-point field goals made.
And I didn't see earlier. Was this regular season only, or was this combined?
I'm gonna assume it's regular season. This is using the Basketball Reference Index, and so they don't have like a specifics on whether or not it is like both regular season and playoffs. But I know that they do have like playoff stats as well on this stuff, and so I assume that this is probably just regular season. Because if we did add in playoffs, maybe the list change up a little bit. Bryn Forbes is on this list, top 10, and Bryn Forbes wasn't necessarily shooting 3-point field goals for us all the time in the playoffs, So there might have been a couple guys that were like in the playoffs a lot with us that would have like really bumped that up. We really would have added a lot more 3-point field goals in our on that list. But next part of the question is, and we're just gonna do ballparks here, but how many 3-point field goals has Manu made in his career, with that? It is his career in that sense. Now, you were saying Danny, y'all had guessed Danny. Danny's at 959. Number 2 on that list was Patty Mills, who had 1,171 with us. Got to assume that if Patty stayed here for however many more years, then he definitely would have become the 3-point leader.
Oh, Savannah was only like 2 ahead of him.
But we'll see, because how many seasons has Patty been out? Patty's been out for the last 2 seasons, not as a net, right? And so I'm not gonna say that it was 2, because it definitely isn't. It's a little bit more than that before you try to try to guess that it's pretty close to that 1,100 range. In terms of attempts, I'll say that Manu attempted 4,055. Sorry, not 400. 4,055 with us. Patty attempted 3,011, and Danny attempted 2,421. So Danny by far is the most I guess like accurate shooter out of those top threes.
That's another reason why I picked him, because I knew he was setting records for making threes. So it's like, well, he had a shot to catch up on somebody like Manu.
So
all right. Well, I have a guess. Wait, let me. Yeah, I have a guess though.
So Chris, or I guess we'll go with Juan this time. How many 3-point shots did he make?
You want me to put it up?
Yes. 1374. He put that on the court and everything. That's a good guess. That's a pretty good guess. And Chris, what do you got?
1220.
1220. So Juan is indeed closer here. Juan had put 1374, and I didn't give y'all the ballpark range of like what I was gonna give y'all, but
You
it
kind
was.
of did. You helped us. You're like third place is this, second place is
Mhm.
this. I was like,
Well,
don't.
I'm
Don't keep
saying
talking.
who was gonna get that point? Like how y'all were gonna get that point?
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
and the ballpark range was gonna be 100. Like if y'all would have gotten 100 within. Juan said 1374, and the answer was 1495.
Dang, almost 1,500
So almost
Wow.
1500.
out of
My
4,000. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
my original guess was 1174, and when you were like, he's not that close to Patty, I was like, oh,
Yeah, yeah. Mine too. I was 11. It was like pretty low into the 1100s, and then I went to 1,200, and I was gonna go higher, but eh.
No, and the thing that surprised me the most was that Manu took 4,000 threes. But like again, and I think it's even crazier to think about because Manu was here his entire career, so of course he took 4,000 threes with us. Patty taking 3,000 threes with us is crazy to me. He was he wasn't here nearly as long as Manu was. So it's like it's one of those things where that was an interesting little number right there. Juan was this close to getting within the 100 range. Um, and I mean it's still pretty good to see how we how you start to like look at some of the numbers, you start to understand, you're thinking about like, oh man, Manu kind of did take a good amount of threes. He probably had to take a lot of threes for us, especially maybe like in the early part of his career, where he wasn't nearly as like self-creating, and and we probably just had the role of just like, well, you're just going to be shooting because we're going to let Tim Duncan do his thing.
Mhm.
So that's definitely something that to think about. But to bring it to the modern Spurs, to today's Spurs, who do y'all think was leading the San Antonio Spurs in 3-point percentage over the course of January? This is
oh,
a minimum of one attempt, minimum of one, because Blake Wesley played 2 games and made all of the threes that he took.
Can
So
can you ask the question one more time, Jake?
who's leading the Spurs in 3-point percentage over the month of January?
Over this month.
Over the month of January. Again, minimum of one attempt.
What?
Because Blake Wesley he's like shot like 2, 3, something like that in
So
like the
if
games he's
if
played.
so if he would have made two of those three and he's shooting 67%, he would be the answer to the question right now.
He's hit like every three that he's taken, but like I'm just not counting Blake Wesley because he hasn't taken that many threes.
You just
It's
said a
only like
minimum of one.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember how my number thing said it to where I had it like correct at like the minimum of one attempt per game. So I don't know if he's
per
played
game.
3 games,
That's is that what you're talking about?
something like that. Either way,
Oh, one attempt per game.
yeah.
Okay. I thought you meant one attempt in the month. All right.
So the point is that Blake Wesley was 100% from three, but he just hasn't played a lot. So I'm still not giving him these trivia questions. But we've been having some ups and downs when it comes to the Spurs and our 3-point shooting. The people that you would want to become good 3-point shooters have kind of fallen off a cliff. Some 3-point shooters are still staying consistent, and some people you might not even expect to be good 3-point shooters have been knocking it down. So, Chris,
Yeah, I'm good.
who do you think? Who do you think's been having the highest 3-point percentage? Goes Jay Rich. It's not a bad guess. That's a player that's been consistent through the month? Juan, what do you think? Goes with
Ooh.
Jay Rich too. Both y'all. Again, not a bad guess by guessing Josh Richardson. He definitely has been doing his thing, raising that trade value up, and we can if we have a little bit of time, we could definitely talk a little bit more about like what Juan would want to do with the vets and stuff like that, since we haven't gotten to talk to him too much about it.
Yeah.
But the answer to that question was not Josh Richardson. The answer to that question was Stanley Johnson. Wow, look at Josh go with the new logo or banner and everything for him. I'm gonna have to give that to Josh, man. He
His comment did come in like a couple minutes ago. I was just
yeah.
letting you talk. But go ahead.
So that I mean that's good though. That's good because hey, he knew it. He knew it right off the bat. So Stanley Johnson was indeed has indeed been our best 3-point shooter over the month. He's been shooting at 56.3%. But again, that's on 1.6 attempts. So he's not shooting it a lot. But anytime that he is finding himself open, it's good to see that he's knocking it down. So we're definitely happy to see Stanley Johnson do his thing right there. Again, that had to be on a minimum of one attempt per game. Now that I finally have the page pulled up, Blake Wesley has attempted point 0.5 per game, but has made
Is there anybody else
100%.
who's below one?
Below one?
Yeah, is he the only one that wouldn't count?
Yeah, he's the only one that wouldn't
Okay.
count. Technically, Jakob and Charles Bassey wouldn't, but they're
Oh.
not shooting threes.
Yeah.
And so through the month of January, yeah, we had Stanley Johnson at 56. Y'all had said Josh Richardson, who's shooting 40% over the month on
How
5
high? How high
attempts.
on the list is he? 2 or 3 or what?
6.
Damn.
The numbers are a little skewed though because
The
like
more
Devin,
the more you shoot though, like, anyways, go ahead.
yeah, and the people ahead of Josh Richardson are Devin Vassell, who's played 1 game, Keita Bates Diop, who's played 4 games, and Gorgie, who's played 2 games. So Stanley Johnson and Josh Richardson, you could say, have been the 2 best shooters through the month, just because those 2 have played 10 games through this month of January. So, Josh Richardson's still shooting. He's shooting it a lot more, and he's hitting it at 40%. That's still really good. I just wanted to highlight my guy Stanley Johnson. He's been balling for us when
My
we've had
guy, that's
to put him up.
that's you who's just been talking about how why do we got a guy like Stanley Johnson? Is he a trade
Nah,
piece?
he's
Is that why we're
still
getting him?
he's still going to be my guy because again, I'll take a first for Stanley. Well, we can always it'll always be love for a guy like Stanley, no matter what, because he's to me
This is the
he can
perfect
contribute.
situation for guys like him who need a opportunity to showcase that they still got it. And
Mhm.
oh wait, he still does. And then yeah, maybe you can find a home for him at the end of the season.
Exactly. He can still contribute to another to a competing team in the league, and so that's why he's my guy. Because I have hopes that by trade deadline we'll be getting some good value for a guy like Stanley Johnson.
Okay.
But going into our last question, another guy I have to highlight over the last 10 games is Trey Jones. Because when Devin Vassell went out, Trey Jones has stepped up. I want you guys to guess how many points per game Trey Jones has been making over the last 10 games or the month of January. Either or is for that criteria. At some point in the year, in the month, and in the year technically, because we're still in the month of January, right? At some point in the month, Trey Jones was averaging more than 20 points. I will say that the number has gone down. So that is, a good little helping hand for that. But he's been good, man. He's been good. In terms of his other numbers, Trey has been averaging 46% from the field. He's been 96% on the free throw line, 6 assists a game on only 1.5 turnovers. He's got a whole steal through the month, so it's been good for a guy like Trey. He's been really stepping up when he can, just because we need somebody to be able to help a guy like KJ out there. But yeah, Juan, how many points per game you think Trey Jones can get?
I'm going 17.8.
17.8. It's
That's
not
my thing.
bad.
That's
That's
my
not
thing.
bad. What's that Jake always say right there?
It says like it's a game plan. It just says opponent, Jake, date, always. So
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. We know they got a game plan against me. We know they got a game plan against me.
Conniving, scheming.
Hmm. All right, Chris, how many points?
I said 16.6.
Wow. Okay, 16.6, 17.8. Y'all were pretty close. Chris, good bit closer because in the month of January, Trey Jones has been averaging 16.1.
Ooh.
So the number has dropped down from the 20. I think at some point it was like 22, but you got to take into account like at the very beginning he like didn't have to shoot as much, and then towards the end he just hasn't been like making 20 points every single game, right? So he had a good stretch at some point through the month of January, but it's just kind of died down just a little bit. He's back to 16, which is still good though. Trey Jones has been killer through this month, and I've been happy to see Trey do his thing. But
Yeah, and I'll have to admit, I had seen a stat. I think I had been looking because we are. I didn't really look from the month point of view, but I was just looking at we've lost a big chunk of games, right? And so I was looking at stats. What have we been looked like in this big? I think we've lost 9 out of the last 11. So I think those stats just kind of coincided with each other. The January.
Yeah.
yeah, well, so there we go. There's our trivia. But as always, I'll be keeping up with the points. Juan had gotten a good couple points today, and Josh scored a little bit. Uh, Chris, I think I will give you that point for the Trey Jones because you were only like point 0.5 away from the total. So we got everybody still in a nice tight race once they start to put these once I start putting up these point tallies up. But one person that has been putting up a lot of points, that guy Keldon Johnson, with the career high against Brooklyn, he put up 36, and it was a really good game to see. I wasn't able to watch everything. I know I was able to like see couple things from here and there, particularly the Jeremy Sohan and Markieff Morris little feud was going on, and that was pretty cool to see over Twitter. Um, but did either one of you guys get to catch that 36 career high from KJ?
Yes.
Go ahead, Juan. So I was actually supposed to go to this game, but I wasn't feeling well and did not, and so I slept through the whole thing.
Oh,
So I know, and we just talked about like we've lost 9 of 11. So I woke up the next day, watched the highlights, and I was like, man, like we've lost so much, and then I slept right through the game that we finally won. Anyways, go ahead, Juan.
Yeah. So I mean, I watched the game, and obviously they were missing Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving.
Mm,
It feels good that in a game of kind of like if somebody would be like, oh, who cares? Nobody's playing. Like Keldon Johnson established himself as the best player on the court. Ben Simmons was still playing. That Claxton guy, he's been talking a lot of trash lately. He thinks he's a defensive player of the year.
mm.
So he was really active. He was blocking a lot of our shots at the rim. And Keldon was still just attacking the basket. I don't feel like he let it fly towards the end of the game. So I feel like he was just dominating a really weak lineup for the Brooklyn Nets, and he was getting whatever he wanted. So, I mean, that's the kind of silver lining that I picked out was like in the game where it was like, okay, Keldon, are you the best player on this court or not? Ben Simmons, I think, still had like triple double numbers. He's not aggressive offensively.
Yeah,
You know,
10 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds.
oh, so he did have a triple double. So
Mhm.
he's not obviously whatever the phenomenon is right now with him of not scoring or trying to be a focal point scoring wise. He still was setting guys up. They were just failing to capitalize on the things he was doing. But I don't know. Previously, I mean, obviously he's the number one pick. He's been an all star in this league. I don't know if he's been like an all pro or anything, but Keldon to just establish himself, no Devin on his team, and he just pretty much said like he took the game over, especially towards the end of the game when Brooklyn tried making a run. Keldon was hitting big threes and attacking the basket, and I love it when he does that and he turns to the crowd and he starts hyping them up, and the crowd feeds off his energy. it was a really fun game to watch, and we did what we were supposed to do against a weaker team. We kind of just put them away, um, or we didn't let them come back. And that, it's kind of funny to say that because obviously we're the weaker team, and that's what people have done to us all year. But like this was a game where you could look at talent wise and go, well, what's the difference here? Who's got the better team? Who's got the better talent right now on the court? And it was just one of those bright spots, I guess, to have Keldon actually, you know, prove he was the best player on the court. Jeremy had a lot of good moments alongside Keldon, and they played well off of each other. But I honestly thought it was a one-man show for Keldon in that game.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing the one play where Keldon goes up strong. He ends up, I think, getting like blocked by Nick Claxton at first, and they like go down the court, but then nothing happens for Brooklyn, and so then we get the momentum right back, and Keldon was just not afraid to go right back up, and this time he had like scored, like he freaking boomed
Yeah,
it all over that rim, and so that was certainly something that like you could just tell in that one clip itself, you could just tell that he literally like was bringing the energy for the team. So it's always nice to see Keldon be able to improve a 36-point career high. It's something that like when you look at it from a couple years ago, people might have been like, wow, that's crazy, and it still is really good. It's still a good feat to see, but it's definitely something that like eventually I want to start seeing a little bit more 30-point games from Keldon, and hopefully something from Devin at some point. I don't think he's cracked 30, so stuff like that where we are starting to see in today's league more and more players hit these 30-point to 40-point range type of games, and it just be like, well, they're doing this every month at this point. So you know hopefully we can start seeing now that Keldon's like hit that barrier. Now he's just going to continue to keep going at it, to keep trying to get higher and higher.
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like I don't know. Did you read off his numbers
You want
already?
me to, you
uh
want me to like for that game or what?
Yeah, he had like a lot of free throw attempts, and that to me is like a signal of being aggressive, but like kind of like the elite side of things. Those elite players are living at the free throw line day in day out, and when he gets to that point, I think is when he is taking the next step. Is when he just is thriving at the free throw line.
Yeah.
yeah, he had 11 for 12 from the free throw line. So that's the most by far of anybody on both sides of the court. So that's just like you're saying, it's something that Keldon, if you can start seeing him thrive off of it, shooting 11 for 12, especially, like, you can get to the line however many times you want, but you got to start knocking him down too.
And just for context, he had like you said, 11 for 12 that day. He also did the same thing, 11 for 12 on the 11th against Memphis, which was a close game, right? Lose by 6. He did it again. He was 10 for 12 when we lost to the Knicks at the beginning of the month too. So there has been a few times where he's gotten to the line. You want to see it more consistent. It's 3 times out of the last, maybe 10 or so. But yeah, because then there's some games where he's surrounded by, he went 2 for 2. He went 2 for 3. He went 2 for 3. You know what I mean? So the opposite of that, right? So just trying to see more consistency. I liked how it fit kind of right in line with what me and Jake were saying last week, or the kind of the past 2 weeks, which was just like he's kind of been steady and doing his thing. He got out of his slump, but now that we're a little bit more, we kind of knew that we're going to be without Devin for a little bit longer. We just wanted to see like what Juan was saying. Is he going to have that mindset, or is he going to have some moments where it's undoubted he's undoubtedly the leader of the night, you know what I mean, the one who's pushing us forward. So to see him have a night like that, and for it to culminate in a win, even on the days when when we don't have to go against Kevin Durant, it's like we'll take these lessons and these moments any way we can get them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Josh does say.
My bad, I closed it. I clicked it at the same time you did.
Josh does add the comment that he's only said both guys need to drive more, Keldon and Devin. Both are capable of getting to the line and knocking him down. And I do agree that I mean, we do need to start seeing both of them just start being more aggressive, start taking it to the rim. for a guy like KJ, I think through his career, we've seen him have his ups and downs at the free throw line. I don't know if he still does. I haven't really paid attention to it, but at some point, he tried changing his free throw up to that like one power dribble into his free throw shot, and it's good to start seeing a little bit more consistency. Just like even from what Chris was saying with those, even if it was only two free throws, that he's knocking down both those free throws because it's crucial to get those guys to both start making their free throws, and same goes for Devin. I think Devin was like 84, 85 before he got injured at the free throw line. So,
And we're gonna get more opportunities at the rim when our defense gets better and we start forcing some more misses and we can start getting out and running more. You know what I mean? Because we're having to get bogged down into our half court offense, and then everybody's just zoning in on Keldon, and then he's trying to take guys off the dribble, and then he's not getting good looks. You know what I mean? Like they're building walls for Keldon now, going towards the paint and stuff like that. So, we're not running at our most efficient right now with a guy like Devin out. So we're doing what we can do, but yeah, overall, like what you're saying, getting to the rim is gonna be what's gonna benefit these guys. But it's been fun to see what you were saying about him finally getting a couple more opportunities to bark at the crowd a little bit. He got another one of those times, I think, against the Clippers, right? He got like a hustle rebound or like a hustle tip. He fumbled the ball, still got the rebound, still got a chance to put it up on a second effort. You start to see him yapping, like, hyping the crowd up like that. So those are the things that I try to look for when we have a bunch of losses in a row or just a lot of hardship to go through. It's when can we find those kind of moments?
yeah. Well, you were talking about the Clippers, and that does bring us into the next part, and that is just that Kawhi was back in San Antonio. I don't really like at this point in my life and this point in his career, it's one of those things for me that I don't necessarily have as much hate, or if any hate for Kawhi really. Um, he's start. I feel like I think like at the beginning of the season, he kind of talked about his relationship with Pop and stuff, and to me, it's like he's just starting to bring that light to the road that he enjoyed his time in San Antonio, and so I want to hear your guys' thoughts on just Kawhi in general, just what how y'all felt about him beforehand, and then how y'all feel about him this year. We've kind of talked about him just a little bit through the last couple years, but this is our little bit of time to just kind of shed some light on him for this year. Juan, what do you think? What are you thinking about Kawhi?
The same stuff I've always thought about him since he left. It's whatever. He didn't want to be here, and he did not help the narrative. Or if he really didn't have any bad blood or didn't want anything to happen between the two teams, he could have been on the bench. He could have been with the team, and then he could have like asked out or any other thing. I'm still bitter about the way that season ended. 2018, I was here in San Antonio. I finally moved down here, and I remember going to the games. I remember how hard the team was fighting day in, day out, waiting for him to come back. And he wasn't even on the bench. We all know the stories, hiding away in New York. The rumors he wanted to go to LA, and then it was true. He went to LA. So it's all the same things. And then like the way the game plays out, and you can clearly see how even like how much his body has gone through and the injuries he's dealt with, still how fundamental he was, how he was like just picking us apart with every little move. It was just like that much more frustrating because this could have been here in San Antonio and he could have been playing for us. But like at the same time, I don't know if we ever would have agreed with him sitting out 40 games a year. And if San Antonio ever would have been on board with that. I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced the Clippers team, their players and their organization is on board with him doing all that type of stuff. But I don't know. It's just like obviously when you see him play his best, he's still pretty darn good. And the pump fakes and everything he was doing, it was just kind of like frustrating every time he would, get our guys to jump and he'd get a trip to the free throw line. It was just like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, like some of it is just like I wish that was still here, but most of it is just like you remember how it ended here in San Antonio. And I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm still bitter ex about it all, but I don't really care.
Well, Chris, what about you, man? I know you've been kind of in the same boat through the last couple years. Been a little bit more on the
Yeah, I
negative
mean,
side.
well, I mean, from the on court stuff, yeah, or just unchanged. But that's fine. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with that. I'm also I'm also not gonna bash him as a dude or any of that kind of stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like that part of it is whatever. You know what I mean? But it's cool to see. I guess
Well said for Juan.
yeah, and most of that kind of stuff, I still agree with all that. We don't have to rehash all that kind of stuff. So I mean, but it's been cool to see Pop and him. They every time they see each other, they're smiling with each other. He's like you said, he's had good things to say about Pop and about Manu and some other players in the past year or so. And it is what it is at this point, right? I do agree with one that I don't know if he's ever, because of his body and because of like the things that he's had to go through with his injuries. I don't know if he's ever going to see the success that we felt was coming as he was a young man here in San Antonio. And maybe the Toronto is the peak of it. I don't know. We won't know until it's all said and done. But if he's healthy, then that's good. It's good for the league, right? For him to be out there and to be playing. So all that kind of stuff. I want him to be healthy. I don't want him to win a single ring ever again. So I hope the Clippers get zero from now on. That's how it goes. But that's how it has to be, right? Because I'm repping the silver and black always. And so from that point of view, we can be on the opposite sides of the fence. You know what I'm saying? And that's okay because that's what sports is. So that's where I see it from that. At this point.
For sure. And I don't think any of that comes from bad blood between these two, cuz it's not like it was a thing of, whoa, Kawhi like did the right thing by us or anything like that. Like, nah, Kawhi, like we still do have the right to like not necessarily be the biggest fans of Kawhi, but I think it's nice that most of San Antonio most of San Antonio just doesn't necessarily care about it anymore. Like in terms of just like when he's back in SA, we're not hearing like the craziest boos or anything like that to where we're like, this is still such a heated thing that Kawhi is not here anymore. Like we're both moving on, like in
And
a
and,
sense
and
of
make
San
make no
Antonio with
mistake,
Kawhi.
make no mistake. Romeo Langford gets a block on Kawhi, and it gets the one of the loudest roars of the game, right? Like that's not by accident, and that's gonna happen, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all right that he gets the biggest boo of the night of any game that he's in here in San Antonio. That's okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I, I, I
Josh Josh wants him to come back and pair him up
I
with Victor.
miss him.
That's crazy. Josh has definitely been the biggest Kawhi fan out of us four
I
through
mean, I
through
mean,
his
from a
departure.
basketball standpoint, when Juan's saying how frustrating it is to see the little pump fakes and stuff, it's because you see the discrepancy of where he is as a player and where our guys are as players, right? So, like, it's true. He's one of the
yeah,
best.
My
I have said like on the record, like if he would have just played out his whole contract and left, I would not be any more upset that he left. I'd be sad, I'd be heartbroken, sure, because he was my favorite player. I was a high school kid modeling my game after him. I wanted to play defense. I wanted to just be rangy and just do all that stuff he could do because I wanted to be like Kawhi. And I had so much love for him. It was the way it ended and the way he kind of just left San Antonio that has always sat wrong with me. And if he would have played out his contract and just left, or if he got traded the way DJ left, like I would not be this like upset with him. But there was like a whole national media narrative about San Antonio that he did
Yeah,
not help
yeah,
fight. Like it kind of egged it on a little bit,
yeah.
and I feel like he could have helped that. And that's what always bugs me. And I'll always be, I guess, defending the city of San Antonio. And I know the organization is not perfect. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
that over the years with every player, not just Kawhi and now the Dejounte stuff, but like
And
as
the and
far
the
as
and the primo stuff.
yeah, and the Primo stuff. Like as far as like the organization, I know we're not perfect, but the attacking of San Antonio by the national media from that saga, I'll never get over because a lot of that felt unjust and unfair.
Yeah.
And all we did was want to find out why he wasn't with the team, and if he was ever going to come back. And all that stuff could have easily been avoided by probably both sides, but you know it
Yeah.
ended the way it ended. And
Yeah. And I do feel the same way. Because like what you're saying, like I won't ever forget or forgive the feeling of what it felt like to watch Manu Ginobili have to go out there and try to do stuff by himself as a 38-year-old man,
yeah,
and just watch. And yeah, you can, from the national standpoint, it fit perfectly with everybody's narrative, which is let's watch Manu go out swinging. We know they're going to lose. Let's get him out of here so we can watch the Warriors move on to the next thing. Like, it fit perfectly with what everybody else wanted, right? But we just knew like it didn't have to be that way, right? Instead, it could have been so much more. And those guys, and like a guy like Manu deserved more, right? And so from that point of view, that stuff doesn't go away.
yeah,
So I feel all that too.
Yeah, and I think as we finish up this little Kawhi topic, for me, I think a lot of like my love hate for him like was just fluctuating through the year that we traded him, because I was like really getting into this point of like trying to watch everything that I could about basketball. And so, we trade our best player, and I'm trying to enjoy DeMar on our team, but then I'm looking over on the other side, and Kawhi's killing it in Toronto, and the way that they were running their stuff through that year, it was like so frustrating to watch, but so like beautiful to just see on the court. Like they were playing some good basketball through that year. And so it was something for me as like, as a growing NBA fan, as my mind was still developing in terms of just like understanding the game. That was the team for me to just be like, well, I'm just going to keep watching these guys and see and start understanding how Toronto worked. And so it was always a thing for me that
You
like,
had a barrier of entry into a new team because you felt like you knew a guy like Kawhi, right?
yeah.
So you could
And
see how they interacted with him.
exactly. And so, because it wasn't the same way that we ran our stuff. We had LaMarcus Aldridge as a co-star in that point for Kawhi's peak stardom, and their guys were Kyle Lowry and Pascal. Those guys were completely different from what our guard and big forward was. So
Yeah,
it's something like that where
and especially because of DeMar coming to San Antonio as part of that trade, and Jakob too. I don't think there's really any like beef between San Antonio and Toronto, really. You know what I mean?
at all.
Toronto is just a vessel for Kawhi getting himself to LA anyway, so it is what it
Hmm.
yeah,
is.
And so Kawhi, I feel like always has like he'll always have that little bit of history between us that nobody's gonna be able to forget. But through these years, it's definitely been interesting to see how the city of San Antonio has reacted to Kawhi. Because definitely it felt good. It
And
felt
and and we're
real
we're
good in
we're, we're
those.
going to talk about it a little bit here in a second, but it has trickle down effects to this day. I mean, we're talking about the Dejounte Murray interview here in just a second, which is it's all lingering from all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like Dejounte was on that team. You know what I'm saying? Was
Hmm.
watching on the bench right there when that injury happened. So like,
And so then, yeah, as we start to get into this Dejounte stuff, man, like through this just the last week, Dejounte was on the All the Smoke, if I'm saying that right, All the Smoke interview,
mhm, mhm.
with what it's Matt Barnes and who?
Stephen
Stephen
Jackson.
Jackson.
Yeah. I wanted to get a little jab at him because I'm not the biggest fan of him. He you know, some people might be. I'm not, just because I didn't watch that guy play for San
Yeah,
Antonio Spurs jersey, so I don't care for him. Like
Mm.
I am not, never been a huge fan of him. And then the way that he talks about the Spurs, it's a little too much sometimes, man. But Dejounte was on that interview, and it was an easy way for both Jackson and Dejounte to like start to feed off of each other's energy towards the Spurs, and like just be able to say some things that some people I feel like take it a little too far, but there are little things here and there with Dejounte's interview that I think definitely were little shots at San Antonio, you know. But before I get into my thoughts, Juan, was there anything from the interview that really stuck out to you?
Um, well, like the last couple of times I've had to talk about it, with people, I've kind of like started to kind of formulate a little bit more of like an understanding of Dejounte's come from. I have, as soon as I saw the comments and like some of the clips that were coming out, I didn't really think anything too bad about it. And then when I saw the uproar on Spurs Twitter, I thought some of that stuff was a little bit too much. My first immediate thought was, as soon as they announced Dejounte was going to be on that podcast, everybody had a feeling it was going to be like anti San Antonio, media. Like that was just the first thought. And so I feel like a lot of people had those thoughts going into it, and they were ready to pick at it and pull everything apart to justify those feelings. Now that being said, there were a couple of like moments where I don't know if Dejounte was like kind of trying to like say like what bothered him or whatnot. I know like things must have bothered him. Things probably bother any player who's ever played for any team, right? Like not every decision goes your way.
Yeah.
So that's like the stuff that I felt okay. Like it didn't bother me. I don't hate him for that. I don't think that's outrageous. The same way I said Kawhi was my favorite player, Dejounte was my favorite player. So I followed him. I know how Dejounte feels in the way he might be slighted and he'll post something on Twitter or Instagram and delete it 5 minutes later. And like, that's just the type of guy Dejounte is, and that's okay. I didn't really take anything to heart, like what Dejounte said. My first thoughts, this is all my first impression was like, okay, he's still like, it's a fresh breakup. He got traded, and if he's salty or a little upset with the organization towards anything, that's okay. I mean, that makes sense. That's totally understandable. That guy got traded, and he basically was told, we don't think you're good enough to lead this team, bye. And if he's upset with that, that's okay. Now, some of the Steven Jackson stuff, I agree. I think he tries to like egg it on. I think you said it perfectly, Jake. They were like kind of feeding off that energy, to kind of like building up, trying to like get to a point to where like I think Steven Jackson always wants to just talk down on San Antonio, especially Tony Parker. Like, I mean, yeah, like we knew that stuff was coming, so I didn't even really pay much mind to that either, because I don't want to really give that much attention as is.
For sure. And Chris, like anything that you think, like you're kind of opposing in your thoughts with what Juan was saying, just like I know Juan didn't necessarily bring up any specific DJ comments other than just like what he was saying when it comes to feeling uneasy, but like was there anything that really stood out to you, or is anything that what Juan said?
Just like my overall like first impressions when I saw it, also kind of changed the more I saw it, but also when I watched like the full thing, right? Because the very first thing that I see is the whole like he comes in talking about like they got a guy from Argentina playing in front of me and da. And that honestly, that specific part of it is a good example of just like how something can change when you just watch it in a different context, right? If you just watch maybe the 10 seconds that are right before him saying that, it sounds way different because he mentions like, as a young man, as a young rookie, this is my mindset. I'm thinking it this way, and he said it feels more like he's 6 years removed from this moment talking about it versus like him venting his frustrations out to Stephen Jackson. You know what I'm saying? Like so. When you watch the small clip, it did make me feel a little bit like that for a second, right? Of like, whoa, like for real, like that's how you felt about being, in this position or whatever, right? And then because then it leads you down to the like what Juan was saying, it leads you down that path of like, but that's not how it was. You got minutes, right? Like we put you on a good path, and then you got hurt, and then as soon as you came back, we put you right back on that path, and you know what I mean? Like so. That's where those I could see where that frustration comes from. But I watched the whole, it's like almost 2 hours, or over 2 hours, almost 2 hours. I watched the first hour of it, and I think that told me all I needed to tell me about, Dejounte's still the same guy that we liked when he was here, and the realness of him, the authenticity of where he came from, and speaking to all that, like none of that changed. You know what I mean? So I didn't. I really, the more that I watched it from his side of view of the things, I don't really have too many issues. Speaking to like what Juan was saying earlier about like Kawhi didn't do much to silence that kind of stuff. He did feed into to Jackson's energy a little bit, right?
Yeah,
And maybe there are times where a guy like Dejounte had a different experience than Steven Jackson did, but when they're talking to each other and Steph Jackson gets going and then Johnson just like yeah, and it's like, well, you could have stepped, you maybe you could have been like, I didn't see it that way. I didn't have that experience, but or maybe
yeah,
he did. Maybe he is. Maybe they are dapping it up because they feel the exact same way. Who knows, right?
Right.
And I'm coming from a guy who really liked I like Steven Jackson. Still I like Steven Jackson. You know what I'm saying? It's almost kind of the same way. Like I did see him play, right? And as a young person who enjoyed the big three, you like a guy like Steven Jackson because he introduces you to the idea that there is the other kind of basketball player, right? The type of player, and we didn't have that on our team out, or like he was that for us. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things of like a guy like a Patrick Beverly, where it's like you hate him when he's on any other team except for yours, kind of thing. When Jackson's on your team and he's bringing that fire for you, and he's stepping up for your guys, and he's pulling weight for your guys, it feels a different kind of way. You know what I'm saying? And it does hurt. It does hurt when he kind of is consistently kind of saying it in those kind of ways. And so those are the things that I disagree with. Like you can't have longevity here if your name's not Tony, Timmy, Manu. Like that's false. You know what I mean? Like that is false. So um you can just look to their family tree is so big, and yeah, it's all based off of people who were able to maximize their time around our big stars. But that's how the NBA is. That's how you have a
yeah,
longevity in a career. That's how you have as a role player. And he had that too, just with multiple franchises, not one. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that he can't see that, it's a shame. um but overall, in general, I'm okay with that. I want. There's one other thing that I kind of wanted to like bring up, which was just I guess I would defend it. Especially, I would defend him in saying that, because if I'm gonna defend Tony Parker and the whole like comments of my injury was 100 times worse, and I never felt like I felt like that was taken out of context and pushed in a way that was way more inflammatory than it actually was. That's how I view some of these DJ comments. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like that's his experience as a young NBA rookie, and it did mirror a lot of the stuff that what TP said. He was like, man, when I got there, Manu wasn't really talking to me, Tony wasn't talking to me, Timmy, and he was like, and I'm thinking, do they like me? Do they not like me? I don't know. You know, and that's how he was talking, and it sounded a lot like what I've heard Tony Parker say. You know what I'm saying? So it's not shocking to me. So I appreciated the interview. It was nowhere near as bad as it made it feel when you're watching the small clips.
Yeah. No, I think y'all both pretty much hit the dot on everything with how I agree and disagree with the takes. I definitely thought that Dejounte stuff just got blown way out of the water, and people just jumped on trying to like talk trash about him. Again, just like what Juan was saying, they're just trying to find a way for them to not like Dejounte anymore. And I was like, he didn't even like talk too much trash about us. Like if any, there's some little things where it's like it was kind of like I don't know how true it is when he was saying that Tony didn't like him becoming the starting point guard, stuff like that. Where I'm like, well, I wonder how true that was,
Yeah,
because
and
back
yeah.
then, back when he did get that starting point guard job, we saw the reports and Tony was like, oh, I'm fine with it, I'm cool with it.
Well,
Maybe he
yeah,
wasn't
I
okay with
mean,
it at first, but
regardless of how Tony, that Tony has to say that in the public. I
yeah,
mean, that's how, and that kind of does speak to what Stefan is talking about. Like a guy like Tony, even if he's not feeling good about it, will say it to the media because that's what Pop asked him to do. That's what RC is going to ask him to do because it's for the betterment of everybody. And some people are okay with doing that, and some people have a problem with that, and that's okay, right? Like that's where I think that there's butting heads between a guy like Stephen Jackson. Is a guy like Stephen Jackson would probably be like, well, if I'm not feeling like that, is okay. I want to feel like I can say that, and like you're not going to suppress what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? So like, I can understand that. I get all that. You know what I'm saying? That, and that's why I can't 100% hate a guy like Stephen Jackson. You know, like I just can't do it. Um,
Yeah.
but also like when it comes to Tony Parker, I just recently saw it was a quote by Jalen Rose, right? And he was talking about how Rajon Rondo and Carmelo Anthony and all of these guys are like they don't have roster spots right now, right? And he's talking about how like the NBA veteran, the role of the NBA veteran is shrinking because teams put players on shorter leashes, right? And it's like, oh, well, if you don't fit this timeline, and if you're not doing these things by this amount of time, well, then we're just going to get rid of you so we can get younger and then do this, and they're restarting their process, and they would rather just have it to the youth, right? And we've talked about that all the time this year, right? Well, just get rid of Doug because I'd rather see this guy go out there and make that mistake. We've talked about it all the time, right? And that was happening a couple years ago too, when a guy like Tony Parker still feels like he can give something to a franchise. He's 38 years old at that point. Outside of San Antonio, where else is it you going to consider Tony Parker for a starting job? Nowhere, right? So that's just kind of what was. I mean, like, yeah, he could have. Tony Parker still felt like he could do something. You know what I'm saying? And he was on. I feel like he was honest about that, and that's what he said. He was like, I wanted to play. They wanted my role to be very diminished and be right here. And so I saw another opportunity to go mentor these young guards over here. They told me I could have this role. And yeah, obviously, when he got over there, I think it changed a little bit, right? And that's why he retired. He was like, I still feel like I could play. But then as soon as I got to this point, no, I wasn't interested in that. So I got out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Tony was honest too. That's what I'm trying to, I'll defend him
Yeah.
too.
No, I get that, and again, there wasn't anything other than some little things. Just trying to think about some other stuff, like I guess I could see a thing like Pop, trying to get not under Dejounte's skin, but like just trying to motivate him by being like, you know what, I'm just gonna start going to this guy now. You know what I mean? And I don't know how true it was to where it was like a thing of like pitting Derek versus DJ.
Yeah, that part was interesting because I never we never from our point of view, like we never saw it that way, right? All we saw was
Yeah.
heck yeah, now we got two and great smart guards, right? Like that's all we saw was both and the potential for them. But it did feel like I could see it from his point of view too, right? Of like, well, here's the next guy, and he mentions too, right? And he played well in my absence, and therefore that he felt like it put Derek closer to him in the Spurs' mind. You know what I'm saying? And who knows if that's true or not? But that's how he sees it, right? So, I appreciate him for going out there and just saying how he felt about it. You know what I'm saying? That's all you can
For
ask.
sure.
That's all you can ask in the era where we get to see the players on screen talking about these things. Like now, all the older players we don't get to see and hear talk about them until their documentary comes out or the Last
Yeah,
Dance comes out and all
yeah.
that. So we just
And
live in a new era.
and he talked a little bit about the Hawks too. Like I kind of felt like a lot of his Hawks comments were like non-comments, and I
It's a
and
process.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I
and guess what? Now he's probably becoming more of a yes man and an organization guy over there because he's a pillar of
yeah,
their thing. Okay,
yeah,
so now you'll get to learn what it's like to have those responsibilities, the Tony Parker responsibilities, the Manu Ginobili response. You know what I'm saying? To be a pillar of the organization and what kind of sacrifices you got to do.
yeah. And I just like if any Spurs fans are just mad at like what he's saying about San Antonio, like if Dejounte had any type of real like animosity or negative comments towards San Antonio, like just he like wait until he leaves Atlanta and see what he starts saying about what they're doing over there. They're Trey Young and their coach, like their type of drama and stuff like that, and then you know think back about what he said about San Antonio. That's what I'm waiting for is to see what Dejounte says in 2 years after he leaves Atlanta.
When Seattle opens up their new arena and he just
Yeah,
goes there to be there, they sign him to his 100 million whatever.
yeah. I think that's inevitable. I think Atlanta is that that I don't think he had anything negative to say, like too crazy to say about San Antonio. That's whatever. That's fine. And if he like if Atlanta keeps falling apart and there's always all this drama, like that's not what he signed up for. He probably didn't expect there to be things like that in other places. And like he said, he's always learning the business of everything as each year goes on. And
Yeah. Did you watch the whole thing, one?
No, not the whole thing.
So he, and he does talk about like draft night, the draft day, right? And how he was like, people say that they thought I was mad because I fell. He was like, I don't care about that. He was like talking about how as the night's starting and he's getting ready, that like he's starting to get all these texts about NBA teams now, like talking about like oh, because of his past again, like, and he was like, that's the stuff. Oh, I guess I guess he didn't say a name, but he said that there was a person who he felt was trying to suppress, right? Saying like, hey man, this guy's background is a reason why you should not pick him. And that now he was getting all these messages saying like, hey, we're probably not gonna, and then that's why he was gonna fall. That's why he ultimately fell, right? Or whatever. But so seeing all that kind of stuff, man, like you get to learn a little bit more why he makes his decisions his way, why he sees things his way, right? And you don't have to agree with every bit of it, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? You just get to learn a little bit more about him as a man, and then you go from there, right? So I appreciated his time talking and being there. Again, I'll go back and I'll finish the rest. And I don't think, if I remember correctly, I don't think he talks about the Spurs that much anymore. Everything that I saw in the clips, I've seen now in that first hour. But I still want to go back, and now they're going to talk about his shoes and all that kind of stuff. So I'm still going to go and listen to that and take the time. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's there is a lot that can get taken out of context, especially with like those little clips and stuff like that on Twitter, on Instagram, things like that. His own comments. I know he the one thing that I didn't like, he talked about how he gave the young players like the blueprint for success in San Antonio. And I just don't know how true that is. Like he tweeted that out like after the interview. He ended up deleting the tweet. I only saw it like through a screenshot and stuff like that. And that was the only thing that just didn't necessarily sit right with me, because it was just like a thing of like, are we really like that harsh on our guys in comparison to other teams, or are we just asking for, like discipline? Is that like, is there like, what's the disconnect between Dejounte and the Spurs? That's like, what are we doing wrong, or what did he think we were doing wrong? But we're really just, you know, we're actually kind of preparing our guys to not be in a bad position, kind of thing. So stuff like that, where when he said that he gave the other young players the blueprint for success in San Antonio, it was just like, well, who gave you the blueprint? Was it not, like the other guys on this team that like, set you up for success? Like, did you do it on your own by yourself in San Antonio, or did you have three Hall of Famers help,
Yeah,
get you
yeah. It's
prepared
like
and stuff like that?
did you leave because, or did you have the blueprint because of the Spurs or in spite of the Spurs? You know what I mean? Like did you have that teacher that inspired you to grow up and be this thing, or did you have that teacher that you hated that pushed you to be this thing? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like we're
and
so
But
exactly.
I think so, like that Twitter comment was kind of him being sick and tired of all these Spurs fans coming at him, and so he just fired back,
yeah.
and that's why I don't. We know Dejounte's like that. He's always been like, he gets to the point where he's had enough, and that's like, it's not surprising. It's not a bad thing. It's just all these Spurs fans are being ridiculous and killing him over things he didn't even really say, and he was just like, yo, I didn't even hate. I didn't do nothing. And then like they want to keep talking trash, so he kind of fired back and yeah, said something to get under your skin, and it worked because
Yeah, right.
here you are.
It did. And that again, that was because I mean, in the interview, I was fine. I was watching the interview and I was just like, okay, none of this stuff really did seem too big. But then I go to Twitter and I see that and I was like, Dejounte. I was like, dude, why?
I mean, and I'll say that I will say this, like, yeah, some of it does, because when that happens, and I agree with Juan, there is a decision made, right? Well, let me just throw this shot out because I know it'll get a reaction, because that's what you're fishing for anyway, right? It does feel a little immature, right? And it's like, okay, who at what point, who has to show maturity in this in anyway, right? Maybe nobody, right? But
Yeah.
it does show that he's willing to kind of still attach himself to that. And when you do see the part of him that's like, that talks about like, be real with me, and he appreciates the authenticity, or like, I don't want to be around the noise. I go to the gym, do my job. But then it's like, yeah, but you do like being around the noise. You do like to engage in it because you engage in it. You know what I'm saying? So, there is a little bit of that. Like, well, be real. You do like to engage in it. You know what I'm saying? So he's not a perfect man either. He's a young man. He's growing. He's learning. He's living. He's figuring it out for himself too. So, you can be a fan of his or not, and it's up to you.
Yep. Well, we can kind of get through these next two pretty quickly. But the San Antonio Spurs have been like putting out a little bit of media from both this season and with their Ring of the Row stuff. We can start this up with the Building Dreams video series because they just put out episode 2. I think episode 1 came out quite a little bit ago, but this episode 2 has been more for the in season stuff, and this is about just going through Jeremy, Blake, and Malachi's like mindset and how their journey's been through it all. It's definitely interesting to hear what Blake has to say about his injury and how he has to get himself back up. Malachi, he's just been growing on the court, and he says in one of the clips that like Pop isn't used to doing this for his guys. So for him to be that exception, he's just really willing and ready to like take on the challenge and the opportunity. And then Jeremy's been Jeremy all year. I don't think he's really changed up anything of what he said, but he was just the one clip that I remember was just him like kind of talking about how Pop, Brett, and a couple others, told him that he was doing the one-handed free throws in game, and he wasn't afraid of it. So it was just one of those things where he was just like willing to take on that challenge and be okay with people on the media's, in a sense, making fun of him for taking a shot that not everyone else takes. But then, he's been knocking them down. So it's been very good to see a nice little video from these guys. Is there anything from the videos or just from the youngins in general through the season that has really stood out to you guys? Chris?
Well, I mean, just in general of them having the video series, I like them having it because like I don't always get a chance, and I don't sit and watch like the full game highlights of like the G League stuff all the time, and so it's cool that they get a chance to bring that kind of stuff in, right? So we can see some of the development and all that. Another thing that I noticed right away, I mean, they even say it, they highlighted that Blake Wesley like put on some muscle during his injury time, but just to see their physical growth from the training camp days or from draft day to now, you're like, it's cool to be able to kind of document that journey a little bit. And then I do like how it's a little the way that the videos are set up. It's a little not like disjointed, but there's not always like a theme, like the Ring of the Row. It's like, okay, this week, this is kind of what we are talking about. It's a little bit more like there's like 3 so far in these 2 episodes. There's been like 3 or 4 mini topics, so it does feel a little like, I don't know, segmented. But in general, just being able to see the young guys along their way, it's been good. I'll be interested to kind of keep checking in with this series as it goes along. And then just what have I seen so far or anything like that? I'm just happy that Malachi's been able to get consistent minutes now. I mean, it kind of sucks because it's like we need the bodies, but just want to keep seeing. I just want to keep seeing more of him. I'm ready for Blake to join the party, man.
Yeah.
So it's like David Robinson had said being at the Navy Academy for those 2 years was like being a horse before the race, just like wait, like behind the gate, ready to go. That's how I feel about where we're at right now. I'm like ready for trade deadline to hit so we can move who's got to be moved, and let's go see Blake and let's go see Malachi and let's start to see whoever it is that next year Spurs are going to be rooting on to take steps and doing all that kind of stuff. I'm ready for their time. So we're almost there.
Yeah. I kind of think it's cool to see all these guys' personalities because I don't know which one of you guys said it earlier, but it's like, the more and more we move away from from Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, it is like interesting because like Dejounte, yeah, he was quiet in his demeanor and he wasn't all like that, but he was different. You could say there's a little bit of different. Derek was a goofy little quiet guy. Patty Mills had like a bunch of energy. Like, you start to move a little bit away from that team, and you're finding like you're starting to get these like new players who each one of them has their unique personality, and now they're like all 19, 20 years old. The Keldons,
Yeah.
like they bring something totally new, and I think that is it is so interesting. Because when this team used to just be, they always used to make fun of us for having the oldest rosters in the league, and like now we have a bunch of babies on this team, and they're all
Yeah.
hip, and they're like even Josh Richardson, like the way they walk into the arena and like they have their outfit, it's like you're starting to get that, like it's like cool. It's like, it's something to maybe, it'll spark a new, like, fan base, like a little section of bringing in like younger fans too, just like they think like, oh, Jeremy's unique, like that guy's kind of crazy, like I'm gonna follow him a little bit more. And
He's
then
got
when
the
you
SpongeBob hair.
yeah, like when you start to like learn about him, and he is just interesting off the court as well, like I think stuff like that is fun, and I hope they continue to do more like diving into these guys off the court. um and then like on the court, it's just the same things you guys said. Like Malachi has really impressed me with how he's played. I don't know if you guys remember, but I kind of said that to start the year in the preseason that he was my sleeper. I think he's going to be really solid. I liked his game in the summer league. I thought he was calm and composed, and he got
Mm-hmm.
what he wanted, and
Mm-hmm.
it shows. Like he's already doing that, and the shots are falling now, and
Yeah.
it's really impressive. Um, I don't know. When was the last time we had like a rookie go for 20 points the way, Malachi did, and not like a top 10 rookie, obviously like the Dejountes, the Corey Josephs, the late first round picks. Like, when's the last time we had a guy go for 20 or score the way Malachi does? That's every time I think I see Malachi on the court. It's like, when's the last time we had a rookie come in like shooting this well, or like
Yeah.
doing this well?
I've been saying for the past couple episodes now that he reminds me of like Victor Oladipo, the way he moves around, but he also reminds me a lot of Rudy Gay. The way
Yeah,
he has spots on the floor, the way he uses his shoulders and like in pivots into his spots. The way like I don't know, like he shoots with confidence. He doesn't look afraid to I don't know. Like like there's so many things about the way he has a ball in his hand that reminds me of he's like a small Rudy Gay. That's how I see him
yeah,
when he's out
yeah. That's a good comp. And then yeah, Blake, I am just so ready to see him go. I know he's tearing it up in the G League when he gets a chance. He got to play a couple times. I think he played against in that Warriors game too at the Alamo Dome. He played a little bit.
there.
And he's played I think maybe once since then. It just is like you're just waiting for him to go because you know how aggressive he is. He's just gonna have like a crazy spark that we haven't seen all year. Um, and then yeah, Jeremy I think is amazing. I think he's awesome. I know a lot of Spurs fans aren't happy with the production he's had, but I think if you just look at his month by month, that guy is growing like crazy, and he's progressing. I There was a game where he had like 16 points in the first half, and I think he finished with 16. He was in foul trouble. He had like 4 fouls in the first half, but like he came out. It might have been the Brooklyn game where he hit like a couple of threes to start the game off, and they looked good, and he was just aggressive, and it was just like I know the way this team. It's a losing team, and we talk about good numbers on a bad team, like that type of stuff, but like to just see Jeremy like recognize, oh, this is my time. Like I have to do something here offensively. I can't just be
Yeah.
passive, part in this system right now. And to see him like learn that each game and like, oh, see that, oh, maybe I can just kind of be doing this myself, anyways. Um,
Yeah, and a game like that Brooklyn game, like when you look at like the scoring breakdown, we outscore them 27-15 in the first quarter, and we outscore them 25-17 in the third quarter, right? So it's kind of like you come out strong, you have good focus at the beginning of the first and third quarter, and that sets you up for good things to happen in the second and the fourth. And so if a guy like Jeremy could come in and give you those timely, a good energy to start and hit or two or three good timely shots in the first quarter, well then offensively that's really all you need from him on that front. And then he gives you the hustle points for the rest of the game, and you let Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and whoever else take you home, right? So he's doing everything that you would need him to do. Like that's what puts you in a game to put you in a position to win a game like the Brooklyn game. And yeah, it's the Keldon Johnson 36 points that leads the charge, but that's the puzzle piece right next to him. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So yeah, love to see the things that he's doing, and what Jake said about like his demeanor has been positive this whole year, right? So we've seen good growth. He's had a good wits about it this whole time. There's things that have worked and have not worked. So to the point of him changing his shooting form, you know what I mean? So we see the process in real time. So man, yeah, I have a lot of good I have a lot of good things to say and see about these rookies. It's a shame that we're losing some games, but you know it's been fun nonetheless.
So,
I agree.
uh, as we wrap this up, I saw this tweet earlier today. It's by at NBA University. So shout out to them because they do have like a lot of fun little stats, right? Um, and so for this graphic, they're talking about like the like how hard it is to finish at the rim. You know, especially as a first, second, or third year player, you don't necessarily have like the bag yet. You know, so trying to make shots around the rim, it's it can be difficult, right? And I don't it doesn't it's like a scatter plot, so it's hard to like really give these guys numbers or anything like that. But just know that like Anthony Edwards is like at the top of like being one of the very best like shot creator around the rim. And Wagner is being the best at just like making any shot, right? And that's at like good creation as well. And so just to shout this out, as part of the youngins, Malachi is, he's not at the very top of being like the best at creating. He is getting like, in a sense spoon fed is how the thing is like portraying it. But he is like almost like he's like in like the higher echelon of the shot making around the rim. And that's just good to see from a rookie. It's good to see that you're getting a guy that knows his positioning, because even if you are quote unquote getting spoon fed, if you're not making those shots, then it doesn't matter. So for him to be good at taking those shots around the rim, at being able to score whenever Trey's dishing it or whoever else is just finding him, going to the rim, it's really good to see. On top of that, just because we didn't talk about him too much in or we were talking about the rookies during this little segment. Trey Jones is like he stands out as being like one of the better shot creating and shot like making guards. There you go, Chris. Thank you for being able to show that up on the screen. You can see where Trey Jones is set apart from everybody else in terms of first through third year players, and it's really good to see it. Can you spot Malachi Branham? He's like, if you go to the zero column
Yeah,
and you just
I see
go,
him right
there
here.
you go, right there. So you can see that he's like, you know, he's not being he's not creating too much, but he is in that higher spot of making in terms of just like being better than the rest of the his peers across the league. So
Hmm.
it's just really good to see that we are seeing those type of things come out of these rookie, and then also obviously from Trey Jones as well through this year.
Hmm.
I don't see Jeremy on here, and I don't see like Devin on here at all. Like there's stuff like that where we're not seeing some of those guys that we would like to see, but it's okay. Like to see Trey be on there at where he is, and then to see where Malachi is. There's definitely shows bright spots for our young
Yeah,
guys on this team.
and Trey, man, as the starting point guard and having to and he's a little undersized too. I mean, he's right next to Alvarado, too, who's also an undersized guy. But having to have all those responsibilities and to still be able to finish through traffic and stuff like that, he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was just something that I did want to point out, just because I did see that earlier today. It was good to just see that both Trey, but more importantly Malachi, and during this part, that he's been showing out, and it's been good that he's been improving every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But as we do finish up the day, we do have our last little bit on the 2003 title run. The Ring of the Royale series has been doing their docu-series throughout the year, and they're finally getting to the 2003 title run. This is my personal favorite, just because it's the year that I was born. Anytime I look back at it, it's Timmy's MVP year. It's just the year of greatness when it comes to looking at what the Spurs have done, and then also how I was born that year. It was just all great, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, you know, Chris, you were able to experience it, man. You were able to see everything. All I get to do is just look at documentaries. All I get to do is just look back at things. But Chris, you were able to be there and be a part of like, you know, what essentially was just like one of the best moments in Spurs history, man. How was it? How was
Well,
it growing
well,
up
I
and
mean,
just
I mean,
enjoying that?
I mean, yeah, I have fond memories of the title itself. Um, but just more specifically, kind of talking about like the video series, it's cool how they frame it because they literally start the whole video series just talking about how good the '02 and '01 Lakers were, right? And that was the wall, and that was the thing to get over, right? So that's kind of how they framed this whole part one episode, was just getting through the Lakers. So that, and to be honest, that's kind of how I remember it too. Where I grew up, or when I was growing up, there was a lot of Lakers fan. There was a lot of Shaq and Kobe fans, right? In my school and this and that, and it was a thing where, you know, you're talking mess to people that are you're kind of cool with, but then you start talking basketball, and it's like you're either Kobe or you were Duncan, or Shaq and Kobe or you were Duncan, right? And the same way we talk about the clash of personalities, that's what it was, right? It was this big, like, they did not operate like we operated, and we saw them as cocky and this and that and swagger, and we like that. It just made your blood boil, right? Kind of thing. So all that I felt that as a young kid, you know what I'm saying? So it was cool. It was cool, like that's how they saw it too, but just, you know, on different levels, right? From the competition and basketball and all that kind of stuff. So it's one of my favorites too. I mean, they're all meaningful, right? But to be able to kind of see we have, in terms of the video series, we haven't seen them win it yet. So I want to see it because I like to see more of like the first round, second round, third round playoff. Let's remember these series. Sometimes we just go straight to the finals, and we forget like all these crazy good series that we get in the first, second round. Me, to be honest, when I forgot, I was like, man, we got to see the Stephon Marbury Phoenix Suns, as well as all the, that's like the tail end of him, and then that turns into the Steve Nash era, and then we get all that history with the Charles Barkley in the '90s. I was like, man, there's some good rivalries from Spurs and Phoenix and Dallas and LA, and all. This is like the meat of all that kind of stuff. So it's been fun to go back and watch.
Yeah. Juan, do you have any experiences that you can remember? I know you were only about 5, so it might be a little hard to remember too much other
Uh,
than your
no,
amazing little brother being born that year.
yeah, I was literally like 4 during the season because I didn't turn 5 until the summer, so I was tiny. I don't remember nothing. Um, I know our family. They talk about we all like celebrated. We were all going crazy. I have like little bits of stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, you go back and you watch the 2003 seasons. I love what Chris just said about like, you know, reliving like the playoff series, because that's exactly what I do with 2014, even 2013. You know, I remember sweeping Utah. I remember, you know, fighting Golden State. I remember going straight through Memphis to get to the finals, and then in 2014, that freaking Dallas series to then the Portland, just kind of really running through Portland to go to the Thunder, like little bits like that. When you go back and watch it, it's almost like you're like in the moment, and you're just kind of like cheering the guys on, or like you see, you know, they make a turnover and you're like, what are we doing, you know? And it's just like, I love going back and watching the videos. And then yeah, like the finals, like the games were ending like with scores of like 80-79, and Tim Duncan would have 20 points, 20 rebounds, and it's like, it was just insane. He had like a quarter, 30% of like the team's production like
Yeah,
each night.
and when you watch this series, like the video series, the Ring of the Round one, it's like MVP Tim Duncan is insane,
Yeah.
insane.
And it's something again like I it's a shame. I always say it. It's a shame that I just never was able to appreciate, never able to like experience what prime Tim Duncan looked like. But man, those videos do so much justice on what it felt like. You know what if I could have been able to be back there. this is what it would have felt like. And man, like it's amazing. You look at the numbers, and it's like, to me, it's like people don't, people always want to look at the numbers. They always want to look at the numbers. But then, like, just because like that 2000s era was just a little bit slower than what the 90s and what even like what the 2010s and stuff like that are, like they don't want to give credit to a guy like Tim Duncan. Just what Juan was saying, like having like 30% production, 30% of what like the whole entire team was.
I
So if
mean,
you
and if you just watch this episode, it'll put into context of the or like this title run puts into context, like, people always want to discredit because they want to bring Tony Parker's name and Ginobili's name into it because of what their career ended at. But it's like you watch a series like this and you see like Manu Ginobili literally just got here. You know what I mean? He just got here as a rookie.
Mhm.
Tony Parker, we're still figuring him out. You know what I mean? Like we're still having to take him out of the game in crucial parts of the game. He's not Tony Parker, we can rely on you yet. You know what I mean? Like that's not how it is yet. You know what I mean? So yeah, and Timmy was everything.
Exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the year that he quote unquote doesn't get but gets the quad double, right?
Yes,
So like, and that happens in a playoff or final game?
Fine.
finals.
Finals, right? So
Clincher.
so so it's just like, like who have you heard in the last 30, 40 years in the big on the biggest stage of the NBA put up near quad double? You know, like that's the type of stuff that to me, you don't even have to watch something. If you just know that Tim Duncan, and then again, in those years where the numbers are not as spectacular as what they were in the last couple years, like there's a lot of people that love to talk about that 2018 LeBron run when they lost, but he's just putting up these historical numbers, and that's like all amazing to look at. But then nobody wants to talk about this amazing quad double where he wins the championship that year, where he is that guy, and it's just like you got to appreciate what the 2003 run was for a guy like Tim Duncan, because that really was, to me, when I look back at those numbers and I look back at the stats and how the games went, to me 2003 was the year that Tim Duncan showed he was the best of the
The,
best,
the final score was 88-77 in that game.
Yes, but I mean, like, so I don't know how you guys remember. I mean, you guys probably view it the exact same way. But like when you're watching like the 2014 NBA Finals, from the moment the ball gets tipped off, every possession feels like it matters, right? Because
Yes.
you're just that invested in the game, right? So
Yeah.
imagine when you know that they're not scoring that much. You know what I'm saying? Like every it's like exasperated. So that's how it used to be, man. It was just like every inch mattered. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I don't know, like it never bothered me the pace. Like that's just kind of that's just the box that the game was played in at the time. And not to say the box as in it was constraining. That's just the borders in which they were playing in. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so it is what it is. It's the same kind of game. The pace is just different. You know what I'm saying? Now that's the only reason why there's and space and contact and all that kind of stuff too. But you know what I mean? Like so, man. I don't know. Just I loved those games when it was like you could feel it actually, like when the NBA was changing, you could feel where you're like, man, we got one of those old school games when we would hold them underneath 100. You're like, dang, this kind of feels old now all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like the Tim Duncan stuff, like every time I go back, I can't help but like cry and get all emotional. He's because Jake said like I wish I could have saw Tim Duncan like in his prime. I know I was like little too, like when it started to like slowly drift away and they started to focus a little bit more perimeter and Tony Parker, and that's when I kind of started to watch basketball. But I always remember at the end of the game, who did you give the ball to? It was still Tim Duncan, and my like my favorite thing is like you can go and you can look at possession in 2003 and Tim Duncan posting up, and you can go look at a possession in 2014 and it's Tim Duncan posting up, and
Yeah.
it's like he just goes to work. And I remember 2015, the trying to defend it. He was going against prime Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, and posting them up and blocking their shots and like doing all that type of stuff. And it's like you go to 2003 and he's freaking going against Kenyon Martin, and like it's like just like it's insane, just like the longevity. And like I know he was a little bit slower and a little bit even like people joke he didn't jump at all, but like it's just fun to go watch him like younger and just like I know he kind of even like emoted a little bit more back then too. I loved like when he would. I love his little like fist pump yells, and man, it was just that guy's the goat.
Yeah. Anytime that they show like little clip where he's like, I was just like a wind up doll, just like let me go, and then they show a clip of him just yamming on like, like 30 seconds of him just making all these crazy acrobatic plays or whatever. But yeah, it's funny. You're like, watch him post up Jaren Jackson, and then watch him post up Jaren Jackson Jr. or something.
Yeah,
20 years apart.
Yes.
They just came out and this just to what you're saying, like they just came out with like a little video, and it was Jabari Smith Jr. talking to LeBron about him playing against Jabari Smith. And
True,
and
exactly.
it's a thing. He's like, I think Jabari Smith tells him that the Jabari Smith Jr. tells him that Jabari Smith played him in the first game of of LeBron's career or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, he's like, yeah, your first game was against my dad. So it's like, oh, cool. So it's things like that too, man.
I think was Sean Elliott calling that game?
Was Sean Elliott calling what?
I feel like Sean Elliott called that game. LeBron's first game.
LeBron's first game?
I gotta go back and watch, but I kind of feel like he was calling that game, for like a national outlet, I think. But anyways, that was just what popped in my head. But yeah, but it's it is true, man. Like just to see his longevity, and I'm interested to see part two. That part one ends with you beat the Lakers, and now you got to go up against Dirk, and man, those are the ones. If you can get your eyes on those, is go watch the 2003 through 2007 or maybe 8 of like Spurs versus the Rockets, Spurs versus the Mavericks. Go watch all of those division rivalries, man. Those were great.
For sure. Well, as we do finish up today's episode, make sure that you do make sure that you do follow us on all 3 platforms of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, where we do go live at the 10 a.m.s. We try to come to y'all at the regular 10 a.m. time, but sometimes it drops, so that's why we're calling it. That's why I call it the 10 a.m.s now.
Yeah.
If you can't follow us, if you can't watch us when we are live, make sure that you do. You can watch the VODs on all 3 platforms shortly thereafter. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs on the near daily. We do love having the engagement with the squad, with the Spurs Twitter in general, and we just don't be afraid to reach out with us. But guys, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up?
I don't want to extend this for another 5 minutes or something, but just want to say I hope you guys have a good fortune with your football game. It was fun. It was fun rooting for the Jags. I enjoyed the game. They had an opportunity, but wasn't able to capitalize. But that was it.
Yeah. No, when Pat went out, I was like, man, the Jags actually have a chance now. But he came back. So, sorry, I'm from Texas Tech. I am now a big Pat Mahomes fan. So it's definitely one of those things where I am appreciating that guy's greatness as it is here.
There you go. There you go, Juan. There you go, Juan. So I'll be watching.
It's time.
It is time. We will be playing against the 49ers later today. I am still just as terrified as I was the second we started the playoffs.
Yeah, but I mean, you put that to rest by showing up and doing the things you need to do, right? And they did that against the Buccaneers. So
yeah, I wish the Cowboys would pull a little bit from the Spurs, where it's like, that Mike McCarthy has won a Super Bowl. Dan Quinn has got his team to the Super Bowl. I would love for our guys to come out disciplined, ready to go, act like they've done this, like have championship medal to them. And the Cowboys have been anything but that for a long time. And they always find a way to get in their own head or think too far ahead or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, just take this one game at a time. You got to go out there and you got to win this game.
That's all anybody could talk about when they were framing the game before the Buccaneers was like Tom Brady gives you a shot to win, and the Cowboys sometimes find a way to lose, right? And that's kind of like what you're trying. You want to get past that, man. So
Yeah.
take the next step.
Yep.
Exactly. Well, with that being said, guys, hope everybody has a wonderful and blessed Sunday. The Spurs are, they still have a good couple games coming up, but we got Cowboys playoffs, we got more Spurs basketball through the week, and we'll be coming back with y'all with some good entertaining
Oh,
podcasts
I'm
next
also
week.
I'm also booking it. Jeremy Sohan 20+ points once this week. I'm going for it.
There you go, Jeremy, 20 points this. I'll tell you what,
Uh,
if Juan gets that, I'm gonna give him a point on the
we
on the
got we
scoreboard.
got Portland. We got Portland tomorrow. We got Wednesday against the Lakers and Thursday a back to back against the Clippers in LA,
Yeah.
and Phoenix on Saturday.
Yeah.
So
So
we got 4 chances.
I got
Here we
Jeremy.
go.
I think he's been aggressive lately, and I think he's ready to roll.
For sure, for sure. But with that being said, guys, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and we are out.
Bye.
Peace.